When Matt was here last, he was adorable, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
ate something. He ate
I had a
something.
it was a migraine. I had a migraine, and then the pills I
Oh,
took on an empty stomach, and was violently ill for 12 hours.
oh my gosh.
But we can't wait to get you back because we do have good food here in
Oh, it
Columbus.
was great. Yeah, no, the food. Yeah, believe me, I saw it all twice. It was great.
Oh.
But
All right.
next
All
time,
right,
I'll make
Jeff.
sure I'm traveling with migraine medicine.
So we're live now, Jeff. So I'm going to turn off my video and hand it over to you to start our introductions, and we'll get going.
All right. All right. Well, thank you. Hello. Welcome everybody to CXC 2020. It's Friday night. That is one of our big nights, which we've got 4 of them. This is our second night of CXC. I'm Jeff Smith, the creator of the Bone graphic novels and the artistic director of CXC. Tonight we have a very special event. Normally we would be at the Wexner Center for the Arts in their beautiful Mershon auditorium, and I'm so sad that we're not there. But I still say thank you to the Wexner Center for all the years they've let us be there. Tonight we're going to be here, and we've got some special guests with us tonight, all the way from Brazil, 2 extremely talented twins, Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. I've known them for a very long time, back when Bone was just coming out as a black and white independent self-published comic book. I got a letter from a young Brazilian cartoonist who was just starting to self-publish with his brother. It was Fabio Moon. It ran in, I think, issue number 27 or 28 of Bone. And he wrote me a couple more times, and I just remembered that name. And then when I met him in San Diego, he was already starting to work for Dark Horse. And then the 2 brothers blew up, and they've done some amazing work. Among them, their own graphic novels like Details, Stories from Urban Brazil, 2 Brothers, Picsou. And they've done some famous collaborations with other authors and writers. 2 of the most famous are The Umbrella Academy with Gerard Way, which is now a Netflix series, and Casanova by Matt Fraction. And joining us tonight to be in conversation with Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba is Matt Fraction himself. He's the writer of Casanova, Sex Criminals, and he had a critically acclaimed run on Marvel's Hawkeye, and he's also just a crazy person in general. I love him very much. I love Fabio and Gabriel. And with that, I will turn it over. High five, Jersey. Let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Yep. Boom. Here we go.
Hello, CXC. I'm Matt Fraction from Portland, Oregon. And with me today, virtually, are Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon. I think that's your names, right? I got those right? Who are twins, but don't have the same name. Gabriel, Fabio, first off, we've all clearly been making some choices in quarantine. And I would like to talk about those choices now. Gabriel, let's start with you. The Mohawk. How's it go?
It's great, actually. It's a lot of work. Maintenance, high maintenance, yes. And you can't do it on your own. You can shave your full head on your own, but Mohawk, you need help, especially on the back.
Once you're in the back, you're working blind, right?
Yes, but it works great. Wife loves it, and I'm feeling great.
Even though it's winter, even though you're having kind of winter weather, it's okay. It's not the temperature wise, you're doing all right.
No, it's terrible. You have to wear a cap, and your full head is exposed. But
Sure.
Vanity, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's what counts. So,
Yeah.
but it's Brazil. Winter, it's just a word. We had some very cold days here in São Paulo, but they're gone now, hopefully. So we have a nice day.
Fabio, you also have made some choices here with just a great big Super Mario mustache. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what brought you to this point.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you mentioned that the Super Mario comparison, because we always used to joke that we had a third twin who were locked on the basement, and he was the one doing all the heavy lifting. He was the one doing the work. And
Mario Boone. It says the third twin, Mario Boone, of course.
yeah, and we used to call the third twin Mario. And so I wanted to do some physical change, and we went. I tried the mustache. I tried shaving my head at first, but then afterwards I decided to just try the mustache because it would definitely look weird. It's like, how's the most weird I can look is with the mustache. It's the most out of place, most unnatural look that I've ever done. And so now I look like the porno version of what I've always looked, which seem appropriate.
Fabio Moons, plural. But just to confirm, then Fabio is not in fact chained in a basement somewhere slaving away on a project. You are not Mario Boone. You are Fabio. Okay.
Well, we'll never know.
That's true. Right. I was looking up and noticed I'm the only one wearing a mask, and I thought masks were mandatory, but okay. I'll take that. So, talking about kind of making choices, when to make bold choices. I guess I kind of prepared questions chronologically, but time doesn't mean anything anymore. And Fabio, while you're up on the screen here, tell me about the quarantine diaries that you've been working on.
That was initially an invitation from a Brazilian publisher to try to engage the audience in the beginning of quarantine into staying at home and having something that they could see and relate really clearly. And that was also for me something that I liked, to have some way to communicate stuff with the audience very quickly, unlike every other kind of comics that we do, which take years to get ready and get out into the world. So that speed of doing something weekly that 2 days later would be online everywhere and people would read, that was very refreshing and relaxing to put my anxieties out.
Sure.
And I don't know, it's a way to keep track of time in days which seem every day looks like the same day,
right,
and nothing changes for months. The weather didn't change where we were, so it was nice to have. Oh wait, I'm on week 2. I was not counting the days, but it helped me count the weeks. Week 2, I'm doing week 3, I'm working on week 4, I'm doing week 5. This was the first month, this was the second month. So it gave something that I can't, it helped me go back and forth into this big amount of time, which looks like the same, and see, okay, so 2 months into the quarantine, that were my worries, and that's what I was doing, and how many birthdays have passed throughout this time period, how many Zoom meetings we had, how many TV series we got weird about, seeing people without masks and seeing people too close to each other. So I started to see that this new way of living started to spread throughout every daily thing that we did.
Yeah.
And we started to stress out about every single little thing that we did. And doing the stories, it made me realize that it's happening to everybody.
Right.
And so it makes me feel less alone, and I think it makes people feel less alone when they see that everybody's in the same place.
Yeah.
If we are all in the same place emotionally, it helps to deal with the fact that we're all in different places, locked out and isolated, I feel.
It's been fascinating to me to see how you've been kind of developing your own kind of visual language, how the bunnies have become regular, sort of in different representations of masks and renderings of the virus itself.
Yeah.
That's been fascinating over the period of 487 weeks now, to see that develop and come out. Do you have any particular objective or destination, or you're just going until it's done and each week is its own kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, I think the original idea was to go and work until it was done, but then by the end of the second month, the publisher was kind of tired, but I felt like going
Now,
on.
There weren't enough fight scenes.
I don't know. It was like at the publisher, it was a bigger project. So there was a cartoonist, which was me. There was like a bunch of serious writers, literary writers, and poets, and they are all shipping in, doing their own diaries.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of the second month, the publisher said, "Okay, we had enough. People don't care about this anymore." But in my mind, I felt like I was working to create a portrait of what it was like from beginning to end. So I decided to keep going because it clearly hadn't changed anything by the end of the second month. And I still think it's not over, and it still keeps changing, and I still keep noticing new things and having new realizations of how people are dealing with the virus and how people are dealing with daily life and how they're trying. Everybody's having to reimagine life so they can live life, because everybody's tired of not doing anything and waiting.
Right.
So it's been weird trying to analyze and fictionalize how people are having to deal with, okay, so now life's going to be completely different, but I still have to go and live it. So what can I do to make my life a better experience for me? Because just waiting is not enough of an experience anymore. So people are all trying to come out with new solutions and different ways to make every day count and to make every day different. And it can be inspiring.
Yeah. It's very telling to me that the person in the position of authority decided at the end of 2 months they had had enough of it, because they think that's part of the reason that we're still in this mess. Is everyone made it about, there's this belief of like, we did 2 months, so that's enough. Now we're through, and it's totally not the case. And now, Ba, you just decided that your audience, your readers could just go fuck themselves, and you didn't care about reaching out to them through this, right? So you've not been doing a diary project.
No.
Because you hate the readers, or you hate comics?
Both. No, I hate the readers because they read comics.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. No, it's just, I don't know. It can be very demanding.
Sure. Well, one of the, we're all the three of us are about, I think I'm like 8 days older than you. Is that right?
Yeah, you're kind of
I think
little
so.
month.
End of May. You
No, you're in December, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
in June.
Okay, so but we're okay. So, all right, okay. We're very close though. And AJ,
Yeah.
I know, Ba, you have a 2-year-old.
Yes,
And
yes.
that changes everything.
that changes it. Yeah, it changed 2 years ago and has changed ever since. And in this scenario, changes everything. Changes everything. So she is my quarantine diary.
Right.
You know, I put all my energy when I'm not drawing comics on raising her, and that's what I did. Like for the first 3 or 4 months, I couldn't really get back to work when when we went into lockdown, because we were at home all the time, having to, you know, give 100% of our attention to our daughter. So
yeah, kids that age are not, are very hands-on, and maybe you get 40 minutes out of a nap, but we talked, our sort of families spoke a couple 100 years ago. It's all, I can't remember how long it was, but it was interesting that we talked about you trying to find the place in your house that you could set up to work. But even then, it's all such a permeable membrane, because out comes Anna, and like, okay, and now you're sitting on daddy's lap, and maybe drawing isn't happening and stuff like that.
Yeah. Eventually, I had to start leaving the house again and coming to the studio. So every once in a while, Fabio and I are here together, wearing a mask and working together, because I can't really work from home. And it's not only a physical matter, but also the mindset. And I don't really want to work from home.
That's the other thing that's really hard to explain to people, is like, no, my kids are way better than work.
Yeah, they are. And,
it's way more fun.
Yeah, and she's way better than everything. Like, she's in this stage where she learns how to speak so much in a month, and then 2 months, and now, and she remembers, she mentions things that happened like a year ago when she didn't speak.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It's crazy. So, put that next to work, or next to crazy world upside down. Of course, I want to stay home and be with my daughter. Yeah. So that's my quarantine journal. But we are back to work. I'm back to work, slowly getting into, drawing and writing again. And that's what I can do.
What was it like launching the biggest Netflix TV series of quarantine while you were in quarantine? And how different, Umbrella season 1 was huge, and it sounds like season 2 was huger, just what the numbers are talking about so far. What was this entire experience been like, both when you could go around the world and be a part of it, and then when you could go from your kitchen to your bedroom and be a part of it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest difference, because the numbers are so absurd. I can't really grasp the success of the series. Is something that I would never be able to touch. There won't be enough memes and stuff on the internet to show me how successful the show is. But yeah, I'm at home, and I can't.
Like if you release a TV show that 150 million people watch in a week, but you never leave your house, did the show actually come out?
I don't know. Yeah, that's the mysteries of life.
Speaking of, by the way, Tallulah has a lot of questions for you, so
great.
Buckle up.
Yeah. No, I love that's the only, I think, connection I really have with the reach of the series because my friends watch it. My friends who, by the way, don't read the comics. and their kids watch it. So I have family.
They're waiting for the trade. They're going to get the collection. They're waiting for the collection.
Yeah. So they watch it and they have questions, and it was fun when I went to like birthdays of my friends, and you saw their children coming at me a little shy, just to pour over hundreds of questions of Umbrella Academy. And so that's the fun part of it. That never happened with the comics. Even some of my friends read our comics. It was never this reaction. You can't deny the power of TV, of this media. So that's the only contact I have with the audience for real. Everything else is just numbers. I can't really, understand. But I'm happy. I'm happy. Yeah, not because of how many people watched it or anything, but just because I think it's really well done and well written, well produced, and
the casting is dead on too. Like they found such a great core of actors, and like it honors the comic, right? But it is its own thing. It finds its own space as a TV show, and it's amazing. And I couldn't get my kids to watch it until Netflix began to suggest it to Tallulah. That's what got her to watch it. But like anything I try to put in front of them, like they're not. I have to kind of not share things that I'm into to hope that interests them. Because if I try to put something in front of them, they're like, I'll get to it. But yeah, once the algorithm started to suggest it to her, she was like, oh, maybe I'll try this. So that was the only thing that did it. The algorithm, the algorithm.
Yeah, we need that for comics. Algorithm.
Yeah. We can't talk about the thing you're working on, although I want to. So I'm going to talk about it without naming it. But in all the stuff I wanted to talk to you about, both of you guys, were about the pieces that you've worked on together. So before we kind of dive into that, like, just tell me how you work as a team. Cause like it was starting from Day Tripper, the two of you were, or maybe even predating Day Tripper, I'd have to go look. But when you work together, you simply go as the two of you. There's no written by story, pencils by, inks by. As a comics unit, walk me through how you guys work, even especially with writing. Like I have said hundreds of times that 20 minutes into our, kind of earliest days on Casanova, I realized, you guys don't need writers. So I'm curious, how do you write with each other? How do you write for each other? Tell me how you go from having an idea to having a book, having a page, having a fucking panel even. And how you synthesize with one another and all that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of fascinated by how that works.
I think in the beginning of our careers, I had this impression that we had ideas of comics that we wanted to do, and in the very beginning, most of them were drawn by Ba, because he had developed his artistic side better than me in the beginning. So our first stories, he would draw, and no matter who was writing, or we would already come up with a story and develop the story thinking that he would draw. But then eventually I think I learned how to draw, or I got better. I got better enough that I wanted to draw the stories I was thinking about, and my brother wanted to write stories for me to draw. But it's very weird when you're working on the same space. It feels like a game, and you're just writing down ideas, and then you show the other, and then it's this back and forth. So writing has always been this back and forth between writing a piece of text, which mostly is like a dialogue exchange, and trying to come up together of a way to break that down into images, or coming up alone with a sequence of images and trying to break down together how to fill those panels with dialogue, trying to complement a page without dialogue with dialogue afterwards. And nowadays, I think we mostly have tried to break out the story together the most that we can, and think of which part of which story who is going to draw, and then we let, like, the parts of a story that I'm going to draw, I'm in charge of doing the heavy lifting on the writing as well. So it becomes, I'm drawing that, so I'm writing that. He's drawing that, so he's writing that. And this is how we've been dividing the work when we're working together. But at the same time, I think in part because of stuff that we learn from Baz experience with Umbrella Academy, seeing all this writer's room and the idea of the showrunner, and the idea of there's this, somebody is in charge of making everything be consistent, which for us is the most important stuff, is to be consistent. So that's why
we don't divide and don't say written by or art by. It doesn't really matter. So
No.
But just like Fabio said, we used to write more visually in the beginning. So we used to create sequences of narrative and then fill out the texts, because we knew what was going on and what was being said by talking to each other. And I think our first stories were more light on text. So the dialogues were more direct and more, we used to choose our words very closely, but we wouldn't say a lot on the pages because they were very visual. So as time progressed and we worked on more projects, and with other writers, you included, we learned that we could fit in more writing on the pages.
Especially with Casanova, especially like the beginning of Casanova.
Yeah.
Those
complex dialogues, complex dialogues, and more interaction. And
it's funny, you guys have gotten more wordy and I've gotten less.
Yes. But that's what that did for us, is what Fabio said. Like, it's easier for us to try to write the pages we are going to draw, because even though we have a lot of the same background, the same influences, the same storytelling style, we do have our differences and our strengths. And sometimes
just taste, I would imagine taste, right? Just taste. I like these kinds of things.
Well, and sometimes the way I lay out a page is not the best for Fabio.
Right.
So it's better if he layouts his pages. So if he's going to lay out his pages, it's best if he writes what's in them. So that's how we're dividing the work now. Because this new project, unlike most of our recent projects, we're both writing and drawing. Like our three last big projects, Day Tripper, Two Brothers, How to Talk to Girls at Parties, it was only one of us drawing. So now both of us are drawing. So we are trying to put that out as well. Something that we did in the beginning of our career more often, and now we're trying to do it here just because we need a challenge again. And it's going to be fun.
When you guys were out here last fall, I think, and we were looking at you kind of do, it's almost like an entire text version. I mean this differently than a script, but like you kind of block the panels out in text where there's a kind of describing what's happening and then kind of sample dialogue fit into rough frames. It's this sort of paragraphs artfully designed to suggest where the pages are going. Do you how locked into your scripts are you before you start drawing, or is it a kind of do you leave yourself room to explore scenes as you go, or by the time you're drawing, do you know it's this many pages, it's this panels on this page? Like, how locked into it are you? Do you discover things? I guess what I'm asking is, do the artist Ba and Moon find things that are surprising in spite of writer Ba and writer Moon being the same people? If that makes sense.
I think we like knowing, having it written before, have everything written, so we know what's being said, what's the space that we need for that text, and because that affects all the choices that we make on composition of the panels, on the amount of details we have on the art, just to not draw attention away from what's being said. And
yeah, very rarely something changes on our scripts after we draw. Before we draw, we have to be happy with the script. Sometimes we tweak a little word or two, but it's so much less than what we've seen change in a regular comic. After when there's a writer and an artist, they change so much. Like the script can change so much after the pages are drawn.
Yeah, when you get your comic and suddenly there's a balloon that was not on the script.
Yeah,
that doesn't really happen with us. But we can have these sort of ideas while we're drawing. Sometimes, because
sometimes we have to fight. Yeah, sometimes we have to fight the idea to redraw, like the same way we fight these ideas to rewrite the script. We have to fight the ideas to redraw pages. Like, we're on the 3rd chapter, but now I came up with a better way to go back to the 1st chapter. We try to avoid that as well, but it for us is like the same. The words we choose, they're as precise and precious as the images that we draw. So we try to look at them the same way, and we try not to change a lot. So we try to think of everything in pieces, but at the same time we try to think of it in the whole, so we know of what we have and what we need to change has to be changed while it's being made. And I don't know if that made sense.
Sure. No, totally. So how does that work when you're doing something like Two Brothers and you're doing an adaptation of a novel?
We kind of had to write it all before we started drawing,
Yeah.
just to make it work, to see it through and see that it would work and how long it would be, because we had no idea how long it would be before we drew layouts with texts of everything. But strangely enough, we spent 4 years working on that book, and after 2 years trying to come up with a way of writing the script, and then trying full scripts, and then trying layouts with text, we finally got to a way we were happy with. But after 2 years of not drawing anything, we were getting crazy. So
You have to, like, you're adapting stuff. You have to read it so many times that it feels like you're creating. You have to read it as much and think about what you're reading to see if you can understand what the writer was thinking while he was reading, so you can understand the subtext. And you have to search for all the subtext so you can try to include some of the stuff which is not on the writing. You can include that on the images.
Right.
So
Did you how much latitude did you have from the author? I mean, to explore and to kind of discover that stuff. And did you guys see things that he didn't? Did you find things that maybe weren't intended, but he encouraged you to bring out, or was he resistant to stuff like that?
No, we had a few meetings with him when we were starting the project, and when we were starting to create the visuals for the stories, and his input on some characters, and Zana specifically, the mother, was very important to us, because that's the kind of inside information that we didn't really have on the book. But once he said it out loud, it was clear to us, oh yes, of course, this is the character that he's written. So but after that, he just gave us full liberty to work and to make our own decisions, and we are the kind of people who try to do as faithful as an adaptation as we can, and faithful to the original's strengths as the language and the story and the challenges, and how can we bring that into comics. So that's what we really try to do, explore a lot of silent scenes as well, because silence is something that we can work so well in comics. And so he was really happy with the result, because the city that we portray nowadays doesn't look like that. So it's kind of like a trip to the past for him, to see our effort to portray the city the way he described it, the way he remembers it. And because nowadays it's all changed. It's funny that they made a TV miniseries out of that book as well. It was released a year after our book. It was being done at the same time, and we were afraid it would be released at the same time. But thankfully, we were faster. But they had more trouble trying to, rebuild that city at that time than we did, because we can draw it. We can draw anything. So they had to shoot on a set, and maybe try on a different city, because they couldn't find the locations on the actual city anymore. But yeah, it was a great project, very fulfilling and very challenging.
And the author is like one of the biggest authors of in like contemporary fiction in Brazil. Like, it was not a small project. It was not like there are a lot of eyes on it. There's a lot of attention on it. It was a
Yeah, no, he's probably the biggest contemporary Brazilian writer, and it's his most acclaimed book.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so
I guess we're almost out of time. So tell me about the play that was based on your work, and tell me what you liked working. How was that experience? What did you like about it? What worked? What didn't? How did that whole kind of? It was a really fascinating time to be talking to you guys, to see this, you growing into this kind of new space. Tell me about it some, because I bet most folks don't know about it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, we actually wrote the play. It was not adapted from like a story we did. We wrote it to be a play, and we were invited by the main actress. She wanted to do a play which had kung fu because she practiced kung fu, and she thought, kung fu, comics, everything together.
Sure.
So she invited us to write it. But then one day we went out to lunch, and she was telling about her past experiences being involved in a very in a religious cult, and how that was traumatizing and how she came out of it. And she kind of wanted to put something about that into the story as well. And that was so much more interesting than just having characters fighting on stage. So we incorporated a lot of that, and we actually created this play which is set in a dystopian world, and right now it feels so like, I don't know, it feels like we're writing about now, with where people are all isolated and they have this feeling the world is over, and they are divided into these tribes that don't know each other, and they as they meet they fight each other. One is controlled by this religious cult leader, the other one is controlled by a politician / dictator. So it feels very modern, and we wrote this story, and but then the director tried to incorporate as much of the comics language as he could, and they had this idea, this very different idea about the sets of the play, which was actually what made it a real spectacle. Which they didn't have a set, they had two screens, one in front of the actors and one behind the actors, and they would project drawings, like drawn sets and drawn characters and drawn elements,
Sound effects and
on both the screens. And so the actors were interacting with the drawings, and as well on the screens they could put chapter titles and subtitles and balloons and stuff like that. So it really looked more like a comic book. And the drawings, they were animated, so they move, and the actors were choreographed to move along with the drawings. So it looked like you were seeing a 3D movie on stage, which was very impressive. The guy, one of the umbrella producers, was here at the end of the year when the play was showing, and he was impressed of just the sheer spectacle side of it, and that with all this kung fu fighting, and the soundtrack was amazing. It's so awesome to create something that has a soundtrack. It's the only real thing missing in comics. It's soundtrack, it's sound, music. And so having to write a story that had a soundtrack was so cool. And it's very strange to see that side of a story which only happens on theater and plays, where the same story is performed over and over for 4 months, 4 times a week, and every day is a little different. And I watched 6 or 7 times, and every time I learned a little thing about the story that I didn't notice before, something that I didn't know if it was going to work or not, and something that I realized, that's a choice of the director, or how the actors would change their performances a little bit to keep it interesting to themselves. So, and then, like everything else we do, the stories we tell, all the feedback from the audience and people seeing the play and discovering our work, or people who liked our comics discovering the play, that was really nice, really new experience. And so it was just another layer of discovery in this recent part of our careers, where we're still passionate about comics, but Ba has the TV show, and then we did the play, and now we're interacting with all these different ways to tell stories and interact with people and engage people, which I think it's nice.
You guys, this was great. It was good to see you both, and thank you for making time. I'm really excited to be a part of CXC again and not be vomiting off in the wings. So this is cool for me. All right, let's. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, it was our pleasure to finally be part of CXC. Yes.
All right, panelists, you may activate your cameras. And I will step aside and let Jeff talk with the twins and Matt. Hey, there's what Matt looks like. Oh,
hey,
awesome.
You guys, it was me. It was me the whole time.
Bruce Wayne?
Me.
Hey,
right.
nicely done. Nicely done. That was a very good intro. And the people in the chat room were very interested. I really liked the play. That blew people's minds.
One thing I don't think I asked, is there a record of it? Is there a filmed record of this play somewhere?
There's a very not very good one, but like the people, the producers, they did record something, and now like I was hearing the talk now, and I was looking online to see if I could find a link, because in the beginning of the pandemic we released like a free link for people to see the play as something else that people could see in quarantine, but I'm trying to find where. Here. See, okay.
Oh, there. Oh, while you're looking, Gabriel, can you tell the story about when Anna was in the studio and Fabio came for the first time during quarantine? You're muted. Oh, it's a great
I'll just
story.
jump in here and say real quick, if anybody was watching the interview, stick around. These guys are now back live and they're answering questions. So in case that wasn't obvious, I just wanted to say, so don't go anywhere.
We're live, everyone.
There we go.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, your mohawk is a little longer now. Yeah.
In the webinar chat, a Vimeo link to the play that we were discussing has been posted.
Yeah, Fabio just put it on the chat here, so you can all watch it. It's not going to be. Yeah, it's in Portuguese. It's not going to be the same experience because it was really visual in the theater, but it's really visual, so you can kind of understand what's happening, and it's a lot of fun. It was really surprising for us because we only did the writing part of it, and they came up with all the visual aspects and everything about it. So it was very, very different experience. And the play opened the day my daughter was born, so I didn't go to the opening of the play. because of that.
Ah,
Fabio watched it like 7 times. I watched it once.
Yeah.
you know, I heard a BBC special on the two of you that talked about a lot about your working relationship and the studio you share, and that you actually use each other as like a sounding board. So like if one of you is like going, this is something's not working here, you can show it to the other one and he can go, yeah, dummy, this is how you do it. It was almost that frank. You guys have like finish your own each other's sentences. Talk
Yeah.
about your studio life and your relationship working together.
Well, that's the past now, right? Because we rarely work together anymore. But I think that's the way we grew up. We always could share with each other everything. So our entire existence up until a certain point of our lives was shared, was this bouncing ideas, bouncing experiences. We were experiencing the same things, watching the same movies, reading the same books, going to the same places. So we could talk about everything all the time. And when we were writing stories or drawing, we were doing it together in the same place. And we could, have opinions on each other's work. And I think usually it's like that voice in your head that tells something you already know. But when you're a lonely cartoonist, most of the times you can ignore that voice in your head. But once it's said out loud, it's harder to ignore. So, and we're not afraid of hurting anyone's feelings here. And that's I think a difficult aspect of working with another artist. Artists are very sensible and you can hurt their feelings really easily.
Yeah.
And we can say anything to each other. We might hurt each other, and we do it very often, but it just lasts for a second, because we know, I know Fabio is right when he's saying something very harsh about something I did, and he could be, softer in the way he says it, but in the end,
Vijaya will sometimes tell me something true, and I sometimes I don't agree at first, but she has said that I always agree, but at first I just, I get cranky.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question of Matt? So Matt, did you choose these guys to work on Casanova, or how did that arrangement come about?
No, as I recall, we were kind of put together by Eric Stevenson, who had become familiar with their work. They had done a piece called Ursula, which was my first exposure, and Eric kind of put us together on an email as hey, I think this is I think you guys would all get along, and I think you guys would your sensibilities fit, and you should talk about collaborating. It was a very kind of matchmaker sort of thing, and to his eternal credit and with my eternal gratitude, he was right.
Yeah, I think the funny story about this matchmaking is that Eric Stevenson saw Fabio's work on a comic book called
Smoking Guns.
Smoking Guns.
That's right.
Yeah, and he approached us looking for Fabio, but then we saw the project and it involved, different dimensions, crazy technology, spy stories, robots, cars,
We're going to need
action,
twins for this. You need twins.
twins.
Need a
Yeah.
backup.
Twins
I'm
for
gonna need a
this.
backup.
And,
Or-
and yeah, and we thought my drawings would fit best. So I initially drew Casanova because of that.
And it was addressed to me, and I still have it somewhere. But the email was like, "We've reviewed your proposal and discussed it between ourselves, and decided Gabriel is better, equipped for this book." I had no idea who Gabriel was, had not seen his work. I was like, "Oh, okay, great." So,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, and that's one of our first like exposures to how clueless writers can
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a toss of the dice. You could be in a very lucky position and end up with a great artist, or you could end up with someone who doesn't respect deadlines or doesn't respect your scripts or doesn't do anything at all. So I think it's a very hard position to be a comic book writer, because you're screwed. Yeah, you're in the hands of these artists, and they can't be trusted.
Though, it might be that I came from an art school background and still kind of remember how to speak and think artist a little bit, but just in the interest of collaboration and like collaborative adventure, it's much easier for me to say yes and like I want to find a way to do it, make it, we're going to be surprised. Like that's part of the fun of this for me.
Yeah, collaborating is hard. Collaborating in comics is such a weird roll of the dice. You never know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. But so far, I think we've been lucky.
And much more luck to come, I'm sure. I just realized I've been gesturing with my chopsticks. I am, like many of our viewers.
Are you having dinner?
I'm eating on the fly, and my sushi got delivered while we were in the middle of all this. So.
Do we have more questions?
Any last questions?
People, you can ask questions. That's why we're here for. Anyone want to know what happens on the next Umbrella Academy?
So tell me, what happens on the next Umbrella Academy?
I know, Jeff, ask him what they're working on now.
No.
Hey guys, what are you working on now?
Something together, and
yeah. Yeah, we can say we were working on something together, which something we haven't done in a very long time, and we're writing and drawing.
And as Gandalf put it in the greatest way, keep it secret and keep it safe. That's how much I can say.
We do have a question from Scott. When can we expect more Casanova?
Oh, it's weird. I'm doing this in 2 places at once. We have 3 issues in the can. We have 3 issues that are just finished.
Really?
And more scripts are being written. And when the boys are done with the project that dare not speak its name, we'll get back to putting them out. It's weird to have 3 issues and not put them out. I guess we're kind of waiting till we have more and can kind of be a little more regular than we have been. But they're great, but they're just sitting on a hard drive right now. So,
well, Pam writes and says also Casanova more.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we agree, and on its way soon, ish.
Matt,
the idea is that Fabio will have Casanova to do between moments of this new project they're doing.
Yeah, Matt, I have a question for you. Do you think we will have more Metanauts stories on the future Casanova ones?
Yeah, I think Michael is. Yeah, absolutely. I think Michael was genuinely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
although that was before Picard and
Yeah, but he's
before
out of Picard already.
Michael Chabon and Ayla Waldman kind of co-ran some of Picard season 1, and they're kind of helping get season 2 up off the ground, and then they're also doing Cavalier and Clay. So I actually haven't spoken to him about the realities of what that would mean. I know it's in his head, and I know he wants to, but I also know that running a TV show is a lot of work. So,
Not as hard as drawing a comic book.
yeah.
As it is.
Hey,
have
well,
Question.
I hope we can get you guys all out to CXC. If this is still going on next year, well, that's terrible. But hopefully we can get you guys all out here.
Yeah,
Hold
well,
on.
now that I
Hold
saw,
on here. I invited both Matt and the Wonder Twins to Russia for a festival, but it didn't work out with any of you. So I bet you're regretting that decision now.
Chip loved it. Max, I think that's the one that Chip went to. I might be mistaken, but I don't think I am. And it sounded wonderful by all accounts. And I wish I could have. And one day.
yeah, well, yeah, we would love to go to Russia. It pained us to say no to that, but we already draw as low as it is and write low as it is, and sometimes we have to think that the readers need more books, so we have to say no to these incredible invitations we have, so we can make all these crazy books that we have in our hands.
It's a big part of this gig, though.
Yeah.
As far as like, when you get invited to shows, you get to go to Europe or to Brazil, and you experience it not as a tourist, but with a host who takes you to their favorite restaurants, and you really see it. It's such a nice, wonderful way. It's a big deal. I've enjoyed it for a long time. Travel is kind of shitty right now, but
Yeah. Yeah, and the distance can be long, right? Yeah.
Well, for you, for heaven's sakes, man, I couldn't believe it when I went down to Brazil. It was like freaking 12 hours from Ohio. I was like, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a straight shot down, but like Brazil is like this gigantic country that like sticks way out in the Atlantic Ocean.
It's because
a whole other time zone.
We look at maps; they're rectangles.
Yes.
Right? We think the Earth is longer left to right than it is up to down. That is not the case, right? And I was actually, when I travel east, I turn into an old man. I went to Dublin and turned into a 75-year-old falling asleep in my soup at 4:30 in the afternoon.
I did too. I went to Munich, Germany with Vijaya, and we got there and we were just like zonked. We had one beer. Vijaya just corrected me. I was zonked. But I had one beer and I was just like, we got to go back to the hotel. That's crazy.
When I go west and I'm a rock star. Like and so I'm wondering where that meridian is. If I go to Russia, maybe I'll just be normal. Maybe it won't be too late. It won't be too early. I'll just be kind of perfectly right in sync. I hope that it's the halfway point between my I can't sleep or I have to sleep place.
If you go to Russia,
what was fun when I went to? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Right.
If you go to Russia, you just fly west. You're in Portland. Go this way. If you go that
I'm wondering at what point does west become east?
In Russia.
In Russia, right?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I wanted you were muted before, but I wanted you to tell the story about when Anna saw Fabio at the studio the first time after quarantine had started.
Yeah, I don't remember that story.
I know the story.
Fabio remembers.
Fabio remembers.
Yeah, like we were back in the studio, and then his daughter wanted to talk to him, so his wife called him, and he was with his phone with the video thing, and then his daughter saw me and she screamed, "Fabio, go back to work!" out of nowhere.
out of nowhere.
Perfect editor, the perfect little editor right there.
She had never said anything like that, and then she just screamed, "Fabio, go back to work."
She has a career as a
Mhm.
for sure. Well, I went down and visited a show in Brazil, not far from Sao Paulo. But I met Moon and Ba, and we hung out and we had a great time. And there's something about it. It's like hanging out with you guys. I feel a lot hipper. I feel a lot more cool when I'm hanging out with you guys.
No, you're cool, Jeff. Yeah, you're the coolest. You're the coolest.
Yeah.
You made us look good that convention. Mhm.
I got to Brazil to find an email from an editor insisting that they needed 3 scripts at the same time. And my memory of Brazil is looking at Brazil from my hotel room
Yeah.
and being taught to order coxero and saying obrigado. That's my memory. Was a beautiful hotel, a great show, but I was there and I would turn around and just sat in a hotel room and wrote, and it was like Brazil's
That
window
happens
open, and
sometimes.
just the worst.
People say, "Well, how was Puerto Rico?" And you go, "Oh, well, the drapes were nice in the hotel." And it happens sometimes, man. You just get crammed.
Bad luck.
There's a little shade being thrown at Chip Zdarsky on the chat there. He looks.
By the way, Chip shaved today. If any of you follow Chip on Instagram, which I believe is just instagram.com/Zdarsky, for the first time in not quite 20 years, but almost 20 years, Chip shaved because he's taking a flight on Saturday from one part of Canada to another. So for the mask to work, can't have a beard. So if you want to see a beardless Chip Zdarsky, breaking news, fly the sirens, Chip shaved. Get on Instagram right now. It's real weird. It's real weird. I'm gonna watch.
All right, guys. I'm getting word that it is time to wrap it up.
Okay.
We here at CXC are so grateful, Matt, for coming in, stepping in, and doing this interview in a Batman mask. I am in awe. With a Tom Spurgeon sticker. Also, I have a Tom Spurgeon. I see a picture. I have a picture of a shaved Chip Zdarsky.
There we go.
Wow.
Oh, he kind of looks like a little wiener. And then I have my, I'm doing it backwards in my camera. I have my Tom Spurgeon pin on. Gabriel, Fabio, it's been great to see you. It's so good. Everything's going so good for you guys and for you as Matt as well. You guys are really on a charge. And I do look forward to some new Casanova. All right, but I think we're out of time. We're going to say goodnight. Good night, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having us. You were the best.